Hi, welcome to Andrew Buckle book review of Atlas Comics Library #2, and this is The Strange Stories and Supernatural Venus, Volume 2. And it's great that they put it as Volume 2 because, before I get further into it, of course, this is Volume 1, the Marvel Masterworks one. This was, of course, back in the day with lots and lots of great stories from 1940s, and they're very different from the ones you get here. So if you've got this one, and you're expecting something similar, well, it's not. There's a lot of horror, lots of science fiction, and it's even quirkier and weirder than this one. But this was, of course, from Marvel. This one is from Fantagraphics. Fantagraphics have been bringing out a couple of these volumes so far, but they've got, of course, cop ones. There's a war one coming out soon. Loads of other ones coming out, hopefully, very soon, and I will be definitely buying as many as I can. Now, you probably won't be able to find this easily in the UK. You can get it, of course. You can import it. You can go on various sites, obviously Amazon, etc. You look on eBay, as well as probably many others, and you can get a copy of this Fantagraphic one. Unfortunately, obviously doing the post, it got slightly damaged, always the way, and a few dents as well in there. But the cover's great, really thick, solid book, and you can see it's quite a size. There's the details on the back. It's $49.99. I paid about $40, and there's about 290 pages in this. Paper quality is really lovely. That's not glossy paper. It's obviously matte. Very nice. Very smooth though. Still really, really quality. And let's just go through the stories actually themselves. And you can see there all the details. Dr. Michael J. Vasillo. I just love his work. Just brilliant because he's got an essay in here or introduction. And that is just superb. I think that's just one of the best. Actually, if there's any sort of like things that I think that could have been put in this, maybe obviously were not available, there's no extras. If you go to the back, there's no extras. There's no inked pages or any sort of things. But there's lots of other things in this that certainly make it not such an issue. I mean, you got there all the brilliant covers there, as well as obviously all the details, which is great, of course. Now, it's really quite amazing now. He's gone through and worked out all the various artists, all the people involved, because a lot of these didn't really include that information. So a lot of his sort of discoveries of who did a sort of slight variations also of the covers. Sometimes you've got a little bit of artwork that's probably one person and another one for another person, which is always very odd. And you can see there always something. Now these are 1950s. The other one I've just shown you, this one, were late 40s. So you've got, and like I say, it's Ken Bold. The artwork is completely different. Bill Everett. Well, it's just, and you can see there all the covers, and you can see the style of art. It's Goddess of Love, and all the stories were love. Now they were going slightly odder later on, so you got there in volume issue number 9, but the early ones definitely are more romance ones. And you got a bit of information about Bill Everett. I hope at some point there will be an artist edition of Bill Everett. It'd be brilliant, obviously, because they brought this out. I suspect they didn't want to overload the market with Bill Everett books, but I hope at some point there will be a Bill Everett collection. There is, of course, a brilliant book about Bill Everett, Fire and Water, that's really worth getting. And you've got some of the adverts, and you can see, of course, there, Venus, romantic as a tender kiss, lovers. Now, that completely changed Bill Everett. It went into horror, science fiction. Lots of the gods are all sort of mess of gods as well, Norse and Greek and everyone thrown in. You can see there, oh, you can get Marvel Boy. I wonder if they'll be doing the Marvel Boy one. Of course, Marvel Boy did come out in a collection, obviously, of Marvel Masterworks, so maybe that won't. Who knows? But you can see Romantic one, and again, of course, you've got the Marvel Masterworks Atlas era one there, which Venus there, and Sun Girl. I'd love to see the Sun Girl ones be put in. Maybe Witness as well is another one that comes to mind. There's quite a few characters that came out, these sort of, quote, science fiction characters or sort of superhero characters that were available, but unfortunately haven't really been vastly sort of reprinted. Well, maybe it's some, but you can there see Venus there. Well, let's go to things. But the essay is great because it just goes through all the ins and outs of all the various things, all the who did the covers, what purposes of things, all the various, I think it's just great. Lots of investigation obviously has gone into this, lots of thought about all the various things. I just love it. Absolutely great. And it goes all the way, of course, tell you about the fact he died in 1973. Amazing. 55 he was, Bill Everett. Staggering. Remember when I bought those Submariners when they were at that time? I didn't know much about Bill Everett at that point. So it was just, I thought, wow, what a brilliant artist. And I loved his work on Hulk and other, it was just great. But then to actually get this, it's great because they're not, the comics themselves are very expensive. I mean, the Venus and all these ones, you can find them like 400, 500, whatever. They go up for a lot of money. So you've got here Son of Satan. Now the covers, the early covers, were a bit odd. This one's number 10. And the stories were a bit all over the place as well, some of the early ones. I mean, they're still fine, generally. There's a few Duff stories, and there's a few sort of non-Venus stories as well. So it's not... But the artwork has been restored really nicely. Not every single page. There's a few pages where the artwork's a bit sort of faded, where you sort of like... It's, you know, obviously the copy. Depends on the copy they got. So obviously if they couldn't get a brilliant, super copy, maybe it had a bit of damage or something. It just wasn't... But the stories are great. Now, you got Whit Hammond, the boss. He's in sort of Della, except they sort of fade away. They're in it, but they're not so the primary sort of purpose of the stories, which they were earlier on, where it was that in and out between the relationship, obviously the trio. You got obviously some stories, but I always love that. In fact, they included that. The next issue, they put sort of, that was in the story that didn't include Venus, but you got the end of the world, slaves of the Sultan. And Satan and all those sort of things, they turned up as well. You've got Son of Satan. And some of the artwork is really, that looks, I don't know, sometimes I thought Jack Kirby at first, I must admit. The Plot That Failed. Just really great story. And like I say, the stories are still very much that earlier volume style at that point. But it changed very rapidly. It became very, and you got here Venus trapped on the moon. Lots and lots of very swirling artwork there. I think that's just great. And this one's The End of the World. Now, maybe this was a problem for the book. The covers are a bit messy. I think they did a lot of these sort of covers where they threw everything, the kitchen sink, and that's sort of like a really cluttered cover that you might look at that. I don't know. Maybe it was no different from many of the covers that were on the actual newsstand at the time. But this one, The End of the World, I mean, look at that, just the sun going across there. That actually makes it hard to see that. Now, you have got the sun, the background there, so you can see it, but it may be a bit more sort of confusing that the sun is actually close and everything's melting. It's a bit... If you're just casually looking along the newsstand, you wouldn't think, oh, that's going to be a story about the sun getting close to the earth. But you've got the scientists there. I mean, the artwork is absolutely first rate there. Venus, who are you? She obviously turns up there with her special powers. But, of course, the gods really can't help, etc. Of course, there's always a twist. And, of course, it's all sold by the power of love at the end, I'm quite certain. But it is certain. Virtually every story was often the power of love at the end. The plot... I love some of these as well, the way they just did the titles there. Some of the titles are great. Actually, some of the titles are very hard to read. And when I've been going through it, I've been thinking, you know what? What is that title? Not all. You've got a very more sort of basic title. Venus starring in Beyond the Third Dimension. So you've got that. Not all the titles are that easy to read. Again, you've got a slightly messy one there again. You've got Satan there, or someone obviously leaning over there. When the door swings open, you'll be helpless before the horror that will appear. Now, not going to say what the horror is, but The Land of Terror, Venus Trapped. A story to stagger your imagination. They put that everywhere as well. The story to stagger your imagination. I don't know. I don't think it could. I'm certain it didn't stagger that many people's imaginations. But they were great stories all the same. Strange Rocket. That's an unusual one, isn't it? Look at that. It looks like a sort of Western story. Ends up starting being a more Western approach to it. Oh, you've got some weird creatures as well. And this one, Lost World, definitely sort of the ones that were more like H.P. Lovecraft sort of thing. And you've got a Zeus, Neptune character there, obviously. And Venus, she changes. Sometimes she's in red, sometimes she's in white. And there you've got there the King of the Dead. Again, a bit of a maybe slightly messy cover. It's obviously that looks like Bill Everett, but it's just, I always think that some of them, they could have been a bit, also too much text as well. It's all over the place. You've got also Venus in the Last Day, the Creeping Death, blah, 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 blah. Too much sometimes. Last Day on Earth, the story to stagger your imagination again. But I love that bit as well. You've got there Venus at the top in white. Don't know why they put that. It's very strange. Invasion from Mars. They had a lot of short stories as well. Some of those were really good and quirky. Some were pretty awful. But some were really quite good. You're nothing born on this world. In this world, I should say. Of course not. We're Martians. Maybe that someone who's got a consistent look for the Martians because they vary so often, don't they? Who knows what the Martians look like? But Venus, again, another sort of slightly odd cover there. But also you've got, I love that, I wonder why they put a little dot there or star. Is that a sun or something? Most strange. Venus, Strange Stories of the Supernatural. And they would definitely get more supernatural horror, that sort of thing. And this is one of the pages, I think, that's got some of the art just slightly odd. I don't know. Just some bits. Yeah, the top one, that's one of the panels. That panel there, it's a bit, you lose a lot of the line there. There's just, there's very few of them, but there's a few pages where you can see that it's just not. But 99%, I think the restoration is amazing. It really done. Alan Harvey's done a great job. But I guess it depends on the source material. So maybe the source material was maybe slightly rougher on certain pages. But you can only do what you can do, unless you completely redraw the whole thing, which The Little Man Who Wasn't There. That's the sort of thing I love. These sort of quirky tales, normally like 3 or 4 pages. It doesn't need vast amount of pages sometimes to tell a great little story. Or Venus Meets the Lady Killer. You can see now the titles start to change a bit. Again, Bill Everett. You never work out his name, though. Bill Everett. I mean, I wouldn't be able to read that at all. Completely impossible. Venus, this one is definitely hard. I couldn't work that out when I first looked at it. But it's a great story, though. The Graveyard Waxworks. I assume that's what it says. Look at the lettering as well. The lettering was great, wasn't it? That was really unique lettering there. Now, the lettering of the actual text there is more conventional, but there, just the writing, just look at that. Saints preserve us, grave robbers, or is it ghosts, etc., etc., etc. Some really weird villains in these. This one's a good one. The Day Venus Vanished. That was just great. She's just snipped away there. And again, you've got Venus just down the bottom there. But it's just lovely the way it's... And Whit Hammond is still in the storyline there. But she becomes cut out from the story and got two-dimensional. Very odd. A bit like the Thin Man sort of character. Those sort of things. Or maybe a Plastic Man or Reed Richards. Escape from Death. Very odd little science fiction one. This one's really weird. Sort of doll one. Doll one's always weird stories. The living dolls. And you got there, hurry, hurry, hurry. The most sensational... Well, it's uncanny. That's a good twist in the story. The Gargoyle Dwell, I should say. Just bashing there. What's this? Can't stop them. They're moving by themselves. Now, she's definitely changed there. You can see the story's definitely the artwork, I think, is just absolutely brilliant. Love that. The Ashes of Death. You can virtually guarantee how that is going to end, can't you? Without even going any further, without even showing the end. Through the Lens. Yeah, another great one is, I love, fantastic creature, 1,000 years in the future, looks through the lens. And then you've got another story of Venus. Now, the House of Terror, they featured 1 or 2 stories in each of the issues. Jumping Jupiter, I love the way they use that as well. The House of Terror. And on to the next one, and they're definitely getting into the horror at this point. I love that. Look at that one, that bloody back advert there. $6.98, whatever it was for. Enrich, crease resistance, silk jersey, moon glow. I love the writing, moon glow. Power of Death. Just brilliant. Lots of skeletons always turning up in all these ones. Also, I love the fact there's this drawing one. I think they've used that a number of times, but I just think it's got Cartoonist's Calamity. I think that's been reprinted somewhere else. I remember seeing that in another magazine or a reprint book, and it's just a really great little story, that one. Cartoonist's Calamity. Just really decent. This one, Stone Man. And there's so many great stories in it. Mad Mountain. Again, really great titles. Mad Mountain. You've got a weird flower creature there. Very odd. Very, very odd. The Little Man, next story. Tidal Wave of Terror. I mean, look at that. Just amazing artwork. Really brilliant. And Bill Everett's signature there. You can definitely make out just about... Now, of course, again... Saying that, I can't work that out. It said Bill Everett at all. And then you got another skeleton. You got the Kiss of Death, the most terrifying horror that ever existed. Well, I imagine it might be more terrifying than that, but still pretty terrifying, I guess. And, of course, that is basically it. Once you get to the last, let's go to the last story. The last story, Demon from the Deep. And that was it. So sad. Was it the last one? No, it probably wasn't the last one. There is another one, like... There's me saying it's the last one. It's not. The Box of Doom. Again, just look at that art. Just brilliant, brilliant bit of artwork. And I love, again, the title's great. This one, the thing offered more than immortality. All you had to do was pay with your soul. And that was it for all of the Venus stories. Well, until, of course, Venus came back in Agents of Atlas, as well as, of course, the Submariner story with Venus. And, of course, there was the What If magazine with a Venus story, and of course there's probably been many others as well. But sadly, there wasn't any more after issue 19. I really wish they'd continue with them, but sadly, that didn't obviously happen. I love it. I love these Fantagraphic books. I really hope they continue. Like I say, I've got 2 other ones. They are great. The Joe Maneely one is superb. Adventures in Terror, excellent as well. I just love these books, and I definitely will be getting, hopefully, many of the other books that are coming out fairly soon. And, well, this collection is probably about one of the main collections now I'm buying. I've got most of the omnibuses that I really, really want. There's a few coming out that I'm thinking about getting, like the Iron Man one. But in terms of collections, probably some like EC ones. There's a few Fantagraphic ones I still want to get. But I am looking forward to the DC Finest one. I was just watching a lovely video review or thoughts about that. And I might do one myself, actually, go through what ones I would love to see coming out in that DC Finest. But that's another series that I'm thinking, oh, wow. But similar, I would love to see, of course, loads of other ones, artist edition ones. That would be great for all these ones. But there's so many like humour ones I would love to see. Obviously, the horror ones would be great. Romance ones, I mean, there's all the like Cindy Smith ones, Rusty, Nellie the Nurse, Tessie the Typist, Bob the Builder. I don't know, that's probably not one. But it could be a whole range of different ones that could hopefully at some point come out from this series. And I just love it. Just absolutely think this is a great series. Brilliant first 3 volumes so far. So this is definitely a masterpiece and definitely one worth checking out.